Hello my friends, Tyrone here. It's been long overdue as you can see. And I'll be talking about my fifth favorite Western, and that is The Tall Man. Released in 1955, September the 22nd, starring Clark Gable, Jane Russell, Rhonda Ryan, Cameron Mitchell, and Juan Garcia. This movie made over $12 million. That's a lot of money, my friends, for those days in the 50s. Rotten Tomatoes gave this a 78. In my mind, this movie deserves 100%. It's a masterpiece. There's two men who produced this movie, but they both have the same first name. William A. Barker and William B. Hawks. The man who wrote the screenplay, Sidney Baum, and the man who wrote the score piece, the music, Victor Young. Really good job. The man who directed this movie, none other than Raoul Walsh, a great director, but in Hollywood's mind, it wasn't good enough. But in my mind, he's the greatest, one of the best. So, Raoul Walsh, this is my second favorite Western of his, and it's pretty sweet. My first one, I did a video that was called My First Favorite Western. It was Die With Their Boots On. That's my number one pick. Maybe you'll check it out. So, a brief history of Raoul Walsh. Raoul Walsh started in New Jersey, New York. They had a studio there, movies and stuff, but he was a horseback rider and also a stuntman. He was learning the business there. But he learned the business more when he moved into California and he met W.D. Griffith. Griffith showed him a lot of the law of the craft and being a director and all that stuff. And Raoul Walsh said that he owed a lot from Griffith. He learned everything from him. He said he was kind and gentle man. And he was. He was a good director, a great director. He directed this movie, W. Griffith, was called The Birth of a Nation in 1915. And he has a part for Raoul Walsh, and Raoul Walsh plays a guy who shoots Abraham Lincoln. He jumps off the balcony, hurts his knee, and he screams out this word, but he hobbles out, you know. And it was a good part for him, he said, and he really enjoyed it. So he dipped himself in doing some directing movies, and it was called, at those days, it was The Thief of Baghdad, but he had one of the best silent actors at those days called, his name was Douglas Fairbanks. He was a great actor in those days. Everybody knew his name. He was a household name, Douglas Fairbanks. He was in great shape. He knew where he wanted the shots, and he did all his own stunts, Raoul Walsh said. And they had a great time working together, and you could see it in the film. And they had this flying carpet, and the technology was a little ahead of its time for 1924. And that's pretty sweet. The movie did really well in Europe, especially in Russia. It did pretty good in the United States, but it did really well in Europe. So Raoul Walsh ends up, losing his mother at a young age, around 18 or 19. But he said that he knew how to cope with it because he liked to tell stories, and that's why he kept coping with life, you know. He ends up doing his last movie is actually a Western. Go figure, huh? The Western was called Distant Trumpet. It was released in 1964, but he has actors and actresses that are just B. They're not A-listers. If it was A-listers, the movie probably would have done a lot better, you know. But the industry was starting to die, you know, slowly. The studios, control and stuff. So I want to talk about the scene, the beginning of the movie. It's pretty sweet that the direction that Raoul Walsh goes into. You really feel the cold in this movie and the elements of these two characters that go into this movie. I never felt this way in a movie, feeling the chills, you know, and the danger. The score piece by Victor Young really captures it. So you really feel the elements because of the score piece too. That really helps the movie a lot. But it helps a lot when you have this beautiful cinemascope and Technicolor, and it just brightens this movie, you know? So the beginning of the movie with Clark Gable, he's playing Ben Allison, and his brother Cameron Mitchell, who's playing Clint Allison. They go in this town, treading the snow, and it's pretty deep with the horses, and they just came off the Civil War as Confederates. That's what they're playing. But they go into the bar in Montana, and before he goes in the bar, Ben says to Clint, "Remember, the war's over, Romano." And then Clint says, "I get it. Don't rawhide me." So he goes inside. They drink a shot of whiskey. In those days, you would have to drink some whiskey because it warms you up, baby. And Ben goes to the stove, warms his hands up, and he sees Mrs. Starks. But Mrs. Starks is played by Robert Ryan, a good Western actor. And he's grabbing the money. He's with this other guy. He's putting the money belt and the crisp dollar bills, of course. And he has $20,000 with him. He leaves the bar. He goes to the barn, and then Clint is behind him, and he comes and he tells to Mr. Starks, "Get your hands up, Jasper." And then Ben falls behind me, but he tells Mr. Starks, "Put your hand, take your gun belt down." But he's going to take his gun belt down, but he's not. He's putting his hand underneath, and then Ben comes around and he says, "Hold it. I taught you neater than this, Romano." He's going to pull out a gun, a small gun, Derringer, to shoot Clint. So Ben tells him, "Well, we need to take you with us, Mr. Starks. We don't want the vigilantes coming after us." So they take Mr. Starks and they bring him to this nice, well, you know, at those days it was a nice log cabin, middle of nowhere. And Mr. Starks gives him cigars, and he has a plan. He tells him to Ben, "Listen, there's haven't been beef in Montana since the Civil War. Been over, you know." So, and then Allison said, "Oh, he's crazy, Ben, don't do it," right? So, but he goes, "Oh, you know, they have the money," and he says, but Mr. Starks says, "It's going to be hard for you to spend this money because it's easily traceable." And then Ben says, "You're making it hard for yourself, Mr. Starks." He says, "I'm not trying to make it hard. I'm trying to make a proposition. I need a higher hands, you know, a cattle hand to bring the herd over there. You know, I want to buy the steers and cows from Texas and bring them all the way up to Montana." That's the plot of the movie, the beginning of it. And they think, you know, Clint says he's plumb crazy, but he's not. So Ben goes for it, and there's a chance for them to be honest men, and it's true. Quick thinking for Mr. Starks. So anyways, you gotta check out this scene, you're gonna enjoy. The problem why I can't show this is because I will get a copy claim strike, and I don't need that. I don't want no strikes, no check marks, you know. So all you can hear it. That's all you can do is hear it. There'll be a picture over it, but you're gonna hear the dialogue that Sidney Baum did, and it's really good. And it's it is my favorite scene in this movie for me. But there's a lot of good scenes in this movie, but this is my favorite scene, and I hope you enjoy. Check it out.
Sí, señor.
I just wanted our friend Stark to get a look at the view. you're still interested in a hanging, Stark, I'd like to hear more of the details.
No, I've lost interest. Put up your gun. You know how I feel about gambling when the odds are wrong.
And they couldn't be more wrong.
That's obvious. As much as the fact that I made the mistake of thinking you trusted me. That mistake is going to cost me $170,000.
I never trust any man who figures percentages as close as you do.
I'll keep that in mind for the future. If there's going to be a future.
Don't worry, you and Nello will get your chance at owning Montana.
That's a very pleasant surprise.
Lots of surprises, Stark. Give me 16,000. That's the bonus I promised my men. $10,000 for me. That's what I figure I earned. And a $100 bill for party drinking. The rest is yours. You know, big dreamers need big money. Nella can tell you about me. I dream small.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that scene because I did. The dialogue was really sweet and the money was there. There was a lot of money. But you gotta enjoy Clark's character, Ben, and Mrs. Starks. You know, when Mrs. Starks, like he said, no one puts a gun in my belly and makes a profit out of it. But he doesn't realize he wouldn't even make this cattle drive without Ben. If you watch the movie, you'll understand, you know. But what I really love about it is he doesn't take it all. He didn't take all his money. There's $170,000 in this, and he only takes $10,000 for himself. Ben does, and he takes $16,000 for his men. You know, and he tells Luis, "I just want Mrs. Stark to see the view," and then Mrs. Starks, says it's not going to be a future, and Ben says, "You'll get your future. Big dreamers need big money. I dream small." You can tell Nell that. And that's right. I dream small too. I dream small, the small screen, my friends. Just like Ben does, Clark Gable's character. I really love it. A man whose honesty, loyalty, and shows it in this movie and brings it out. And he shows compassion to Mrs. Starks. And Mrs. Starks, gets to see the light at the end of the tunnel in this movie. And you're going to really enjoy this scene. This is the best scene that I love of this movie. Shows a real man is not afraid to go against, all the elements that brings out on a cattle drive. And that's what I love about Raoul Walsh, because he did it in real life. He's the only director who really did it in real life in those days, in those heydays. Really did a cattle drive. He knew how to ride a horse. He was a cowboy. He knew all the elements, and that's what brings out in this movie. This movie is a masterpiece that Raoul Walsh did. And also, I want to talk about that Raoul Walsh and Clark Gable did 3 movies together in a row. The first movie they did was that I'm talking about, The Tall Man, 1955. The next year they did was called The King and Four Queens with Clark Gable and Eleanor Parker. A really good Western, but it's not like The Tall Man. It's good, it has a good story, but it's mostly dialogue. There's not much action in it. And Clark Gable was his last producing movie, his only producing movie. It was his first one, and he wouldn't do one ever again because he was stressed out. And this movie was released in 1956. So the next movie he does the next year with Raoul Walsh, and it's called Band of Angels with Sidney Poitier, a really good actor. And the movie is it's a romantic adventure movie. It's like a Western in a way, but it's not. It's really about New Orleans and the slavery time. That movie, it's a really good movie. It's a masterpiece. in 1957. It's the last one they do, Clark Gable and Ron Walsh, and I really appreciate what they did in that movie too. You know, I hope you enjoy my review and my thoughts in this movie. I did my best. You know, I'm really busy with this, you know, my job. It's a full-time job and it's kind of crazy. You know, it's over 50 hours and I'm really grateful to actually get this done, because this Western is the greatest Western, the number 5 for me, the greatest Western of all time. This is my 5th pick, and The Tall Man really brings out the best of the Western era, especially in the 50s. I really hope you enjoy it. I'll see you guys in the next video. God bless, my friends.